Hello and welcome to our EV meeting. Here you can see who is presenting tonight. It's a fairly long presentation or meeting, so if you don't want to watch the whole thing or listen to it, just pick out what you want to look and listen to.
Okay, so we've thanked Nissan Technical Center, but we're about to lose a long-standing board member who simply cannot put up with us anymore and is actually heading so far out of state to avoid any kind of contact.
There will always be a charging station in campus.
The ones that we can use at your house.
We'll talk prices.
Right, because he hasn't told us exactly what that address is.
Randall, where's Canada?
It's just up the Columbia from Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
This is the thoughtful spot to end up where you don't have Oregon income taxes and you don't have to shop in Washington and pay their sales tax. Speaking as someone who cased this out about 6 years ago, but never really committed in the same way that Randall has. Randall, we're going to miss you. Randall has been an exceedingly valued board member because his career role was as a liaison and a policy and sort of program person to government. And his suggestions, his sort of pursuit of policy issues at the legislative level have really been incredibly important and helpful. And his evolution as an EV driver has been through a real devotion. I picked up from his Facebook page that picture on the left. So he was one of the first persons that bought the Nissan Leaf or leased the Nissan Leaf that used it for road trips. Now that takes real dedication. So anyway, thank you. Can we have a round of applause for...
So how many people here are new, first-time member, or first-time, okay.
And how about the ones that don't have an EV yet?
All right, so who doesn't have an EV? Okay, so
Yeah,
we
but
have...
they don't count.
We have 3 of these. These are graphic novels. It's actually Tesla Man, but it's in, oops.
Spanish and
There we go. Yeah, Spanish and English. And so I only have 3, so I'll hand them out to whoever wants them. And then if you want one and you don't get one, just give me your name or something, and I'll make sure we get you another one. Because we have a bunch of them, but we only brought 3.
And that's for non-owners, for new
We'll do non-owners today.
Non-owners, first-timers.
Non-owners. Okay, so.
And that particular publication is done by one of our members who's a retired Spanish prof from Sac State. So I missed last month's board meeting because I was traveling, a trip that I've wanted to take for 25 years. I combined with a trip that I more recently wanted to kind of coordinate. The trip I wanted to do for 25 years, or maybe even longer, was to get to Oslo for one of the world-class international track meets that they host there called the Bislett Games. It's part of the Diamond League series that includes Stockholm and London and Dubai, and the Prefontaine meet, which coincidentally this year happened to be scheduled right after I got back at Stanford. The Oslo meet came at the end of my travels because I was first in Kiev and Warsaw, reconnecting with colleagues and students from when I was a professor and a visiting speaker in those cities, and then in Manchester, where I reconnected. I was a professor in Manchester as well, and reconnected with running club friends in Manchester and finished that trip off in Oslo. Now, what that meant relative to this group is that we take great pride, as we always should, that California is the leading point of electric vehicle adoption in the United States. Close to 50% of the EVs sold and leased in the United States are here in California. Now that's a really significant sort of point of the arrow but as a percentage of the market, it's still not very overwhelming. I was scanning some of the most recent data I could get for California, and it looks like, and maybe Guy has some later numbers, but my best guess is for California, we might be up around 3% of the total market, and maybe 5 to 8 just in the last 6 months. Is that in the ballpark?
Yeah, we're at the 8, maybe even 9% in the last few months.
Yeah, and again, this is the absolute peak of adoption in this country. And, these days, as I look around here and listen to as you introduced yourselves, how many of us have Model 3s? That is the benchmark right now. And it's had a huge impact. And by the way, if you're not following the reviews, it just got rave reviews in the British press and in the European press as well. And Motor Trend. They gave a 3-car comparo between the BMW 3 Series, the Q70, new Genesis, and the Model 3, and not the full performance one, but just the all-wheel drive. And they ranked the BMW third, the Genesis second, and the Tesla first. And that's Motor Trend.
And the BMW was an M Sport with the track handling package for the suspension, too.
And it was $5,000 more than the Tesla, not even counting the incentives that the Tesla would have.
And the CEO is on a job hunt right now, as I understand, from BMW.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Top Gear as well, who
Yes.
has a less than storied history with Tesla. Recently had a comparo between the M3 and the Model 3,
And the outcome there was Chris Harris, the reviewer, and one of the best of the drivers that are the host, is ordering a Model 3. So again, here's a little footnote. I'm going to brag, but you guys know I'm not really humble. At the end of May, I picked up 310 shares of Tesla at $188 a share. Yeah. And, again, it's been as high as 386, and it's back to 236 it closed today. But that's the U.S., and that's here.
And you were donating those to the EV club. I thought that was where that was going.
I actually bought the plastic cups for tonight. But
and they will increase in value.
yeah. But I'm committed for Roadster 2.
Okay.
Did you put a deposit, George?
No, I haven't, but
Do you have 105 referrals?
no, I actually have only one referral because my other buddy sitting in this room who can remain unnamed messed up our referral process. So he didn't get his mileage and I didn't get my mileage and referral drawing things. But we still love each other.
Let's also point out that our goal is to get the community to adopt anything with a plug.
Yep.
We love Teslas, but we also love all the other cars with plugs as well.
But we love
Getting away
Tesla.
from-
And again, different strokes because, essentially functionality and appearance are in the eye of the person that is making that decision. And what works for me, I make stupid choices. All I want to do is go fast. But okay, what's happening in Norway? Norway is truly the world leader as a percentage. It's a small country, but it's a world leader in terms of adoption. And we've seen those numbers for the last year and a half, 2 years. But what's it like to actually be there and to walk the streets and see what's on the roads? And all I can say is, if you think you see Teslas frequently in California, you don't even have to blink and a Tesla's going by in Norway, or the Opel Ampera, the version of the Bolt, and Leaf cars, they're all over.
What, you have a percentage, George?
sales, it's over 50.
And, you know, again, Norway gets a lot of its major income from selling oil. They're oil rich, but they've incentivized electric vehicles.
Yeah, the exclusion of the value-added tax on the purchase of
Yeah.
a car,
Yeah, it makes
a 20% difference.
huge. So I was checking out sort of a street corner. I just sat, and this is a suburban, not a super active area, but I was just sort of standing on the corner to take pictures. And this was a total of maybe 30 minutes. Model S's. Some of these didn't transfer. Another Model S.
It's hard to see through you.
Oh, sorry about that. Different Model S's. Most of them were Model S's because, again, the time frame. Because those have been there for a year and a half. The 3 has only been recently starting to be delivered. But I saw 2 or 3 Model 3s.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Do you know what the source of the electricity is in Norway for charging them?
They've got a lot of hydro.
Oh, okay.
It's about 98% hydro energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, again, I was there for a track meet, world-class track meet, and they brought in, celebrity VIP people, and look at what they're bringing them in. I think that's the Kona. And if you're at all a track and field fan, the guy waving on the passenger side is Sebastian Coe, one of the world record holders for 800 meters and mile at different times in the past, and now the president of the IAAF, the international body coordinating track and field. And he was coming in as a VIP in an electric car. And then an electric bus loaded with school kids to basically be cheerleaders for the track athletes. Okay, so now we move to our full program with our major speaker for the day, Meg Arnold, who is here from Valley Vision and who is updating us on a master plan for the future of electric mobility. Meg, you're on.
Thank you. So I should hold on to that.
Yeah. You can clip it on if you want.
I think I will clip this on. I tend to move my hands around, so I will do that. Okay. Does that work? Okay. So, thank you. It's great to be here. I've long known the SacEV Association. Guy, I don't know where Guy went.
He's going to get the clicker for
There he is. I've known Guy probably since 2010, I think. I used to run an organization that was focused on technology startup companies in the Sacramento region that was called SARTA. Thank you. This goes in the computer?
Yeah, but I think there's another USB on that side.
Looks like there's one behind that one.
I don't know that that's, oh yes, it's something else, but it says it should also be a USB. There it goes. We shall see. Anyway, so I've known Guy for a long time, and I've known about the SacEV Association for a long time. I work now for a nonprofit or a different nonprofit organization in Sacramento called Valley Vision that positions itself as a civic leadership and engagement organization, which is a lot of syllables. And a lot of the work that I do with Valley Vision is focused on what the organization calls the clean economy, which obviously includes electric vehicles and future transportation. I also help co-manage a region-wide collaboration called the Cleaner Air Partnership, which is sort of fundamentally about clean air as defined by the Clean Air Act, which really does not include greenhouse gases, but includes particulates, et cetera. But more and more is morphing or expanding to include worry, concern, and action as relates to greenhouse gases. And the vast majority of our region's air quality problems originate with the transportation sector. And those have grown and become worse, or become a larger contributor to our air quality challenges in the last few years, notwithstanding all of the progress that's been made in electric transportation and other initiatives such as densification, et cetera. So there is much work to be done. The other thing I should probably throw in is that you may have heard that the mayors of Sacramento and West-Sacramento have created the Mayor's Climate Commission. I was named to be one of the commissioners. The goal of the Climate Commission is to identify high-level strategies that will help us reach, that will then be embedded in the city's general plans, not to get too technical and planny on anybody, because I'm not a planner, but those high-level strategies will then be, the idea is will then be embodied in the city's general plans. When those are updated, the city of Sacramento is in the process of doing that update right now, all to get us to the 2040 target of carbon neutrality. So, and mobility is one of the 3 core focus areas that the Mayor's Climate Commission is looking at, again, because of the outsized contributions of transportation to air quality and greenhouse gas emissions in the region. So that's kind of the context that I come at this with, also having just bought an EV, finally. It was funny, so I almost took a sequence, this is a totally personal aside. My second most recent car that I've had since 2006 was a giant Toyota Sienna, 17 miles per gallon. It still exists in the family, the children drive it. Then I had a Prius, so that was a huge step up. That was 55 mpg. That was pretty awesome, and that was on lease for 3 years, and now that's gone, and I've got the Leaf. So I think I'm progressing, although we do still drive the Sienna. So anyway, all that is preamble. One of the things I got involved with Valley Vision in the last 6 months or so was the feasibility study work for this thing that I'm about to talk to you about, which is called the California Mobility Center, which is a concept that really has been driven and led in its origins by SMUD and significantly by Arlen Orchard, the CEO at SMUD. But I want to make clear from right now, is not going to be a creature of SMUD. SMUD is seeing itself really as sort of the necessary launching pad from which the Mobility Center is going to emerge. But it will become its own separate standalone entity. SMUD will continue to be involved and in a governing board perspective, but it's not a creature of that organization. But without the leadership of that organization, it would not be coming to pass. So I don't know that this is working, which is fine. My friend and work partner on this project, Subid Wagley, is part of the new business development team at SMUD, which was charged with driving this. I was a part of an external advisory committee of folks. So if I say things that are inaccurate, that end up being inaccurate, it is all on me because I am simply an advisory committee member. But it was a very cool project. So starting with context, so why is SMUD thinking about that there might be potential in this region for something as leading edge as they believe the California Mobility Center could be? Well, frankly, I think many of the people in this room know many of these big picture, I'll step back here so you don't have to look behind me, know many of these really big picture objectives, both at the state level and and drilling down into the regional level. There's CARB's 5 million ZEV goal by 2030. There's the consequential impact and need for vastly increased charging infrastructure in order to reach that ZEV target. There are a number of regional environmental initiatives that are highly relevant to electric transportation. The Mayor's Climate Commission that I earlier described to you, SACOG, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments Green Region Initiative, and in fact, I'm not sure it's mentioned here, but the other thing that SACOG has accepted from the state is a mandate that we collectively achieve a 19% per capita reduction in greenhouse gases over the next set of years, which is going to be an incredibly challenging target to hit. And I know that folks at SACOG are working hard at figuring out what kind of programs, frankly, most of which will probably have to do with the built environment, what kind of programs and incentives they are going to need to be able to make available to local governments so that we can hit that 19% GHG reduction target. And then, not really finally, but also there's the $44 million of Green City money that Electrify America is investing in technically Sacramento, sort of the city, but they're being a little generous with the boundaries of how they define that word. So the idea behind all these proof points is, we are fortunate to be in the context of the state that we're in and the aggressive targets that it is setting. We are also fortunate to be in a region where local governments and broad-based public initiatives are further emphasizing the context of transportation electrification. So, and in addition, because this originated with SMUD, this is why this is in bold, last fall, I believe it was, they adopted their integrated resource plan, which will accomplish a whole number of things, including a really strong push and emphasis on electric vehicles and the electrification of transportation, both at the fleet and at the non-fleet level of things. And so essentially, this bottom bullet here is the IRP anticipates $2 billion of investment by SMUD in electrification, both of buildings and of transportation, which will help to boost regional economic development and make sure that SMUD can get to its own targets in the IRP. So that's kind of the big, broad picture context in which we believe there is merit and support for this mobility center. Then you look even more broadly to global and national and global trends in mobility, which is, as we probably all know, going through probably the largest single period of transformation since the invention of the automobile, these many years ago. There are the California Mobility Center identifies 4 major megatrends. It's always good when you put the word mega in front of something. It sounds really really powerful. Connectivity between vehicles and in infrastructure. Obviously, the whole shared services models that are unavoidably obvious to all of us. Down here, we've got electrification, so disruptive market growth for EVs, and sort of a shifting in the value proposition of EVs as we move toward this says less complex, but also sort of more accessible vehicles, particularly in this coming model year and the one after it, when we're going to see such an explosion in the number of vehicles that are out there. We have a whole bunch of stuff, those are technical words, happening in autonomous driving, and it's not entirely at all clear whether that's going to play out to the benefit, to the improvement of transportation emissions, or to the opposite of that. And it's not at all clear really the pace on which autonomous transportation on a meaningful scale is actually going to arrive, although I would guess that it will probably be faster than most of us might anticipate. And then down here they've got a heading that they've called diverse mobility, and they've thrown things in here like Envoy, which has recently launched in Sacramento as part of the Electrify America investment, where they're bringing electric vehicle car sharing to affordable and low-income housing complexes, to both improve access to transportation and to familiarize that part of the market with what electric vehicles are. So this is a lot of sort of on-demand robo-taxi, the micro shuttle type of thing that you see West-Sacramento, where we are, doing with their Via shuttle, although those are internal combustion engines, but could easily be converted to electric shuttle vehicles. So that's sort of the large global context in which we believe the California Mobility Center will end up being positioned. This is a really complex slide. And I will tell you candidly, I'm not entirely sure why there are 2 of it. I think the consultants put this together. But essentially, it's intending to show the magnitude of investment since 2010, $110 billion by this estimate in future mobility broadly defined, and segmenting it out, but with, say, $28 billion of that being categorized as relating to connectivity. So these are the 4 categories that we just talked about on the prior slide, about an enormous amount in autonomous driving. Sadly, a much less enormous amount in vehicle electrification, and then a significantly, and this is probably Uber and Lyft, right, venture capital investment stuff, in what they're calling diverse mobility. So the point of this slide, whether there's one of them or 2 of them, is just the the amount of investment fairly long ago, and then the amount of investment much more recently, these numbers are vastly larger. And just sort of making the point that there's a lot of demand and a lot of interest out there, again, as I think we all know, but quantifying it. So to create the California Mobility Center, or at least to undertake and to complete a California Mobility Center feasibility study to understand whether such a thing might even be reasonable to do. SMUD, the we here is SMUD. SMUD funded that feasibility study period. And it engaged with two entities, one called Enertech Capital, which does a lot of venture capital funding and consortium development stuff, and the other called PEM Motion, which runs a electric vehicle and electric component prototyping factory, or not really factory, but operation in Aachen, Germany, where it emerged out of a research institution in Germany and has grown to be very successful both in the region and also in the vehicle electrification space. And here are the local partners that engaged in the feasibility study period of time as part of the advisory committee, Greater Sacramento, SMUD, obviously. This is Sacramento State, UC Davis, Los Rios, Valley Vision, and the city of Sacramento, all of whom contributed to the advisory team process. So it lasted, I think it kicked off kind of like conveniently the day before Christmas or something like that. And concluded in about April timeframe, end of April. So the idea is that in the Sacramento region, in Sacramento proper, because that's SMUD's territory, we will create and launch a hub for mobility innovations that will be technology and policy driven, that will be partnership based, a sort of a consortium model of founding entities and also members, in order to attract new businesses, investments, and startups to the Sacramento region, to work collaboratively with those of us who are here, and most significantly to materially contribute to the future of mobility on an electric platform. So the vision of the organization is going to be to become the electric mobility leader, global electric mobility leader, by funding, testing, and commercializing advancements in mobility technologies, including the various things that we've talked about before, but EV, AV, battery storage, shared mobility solutions, public transit, et cetera, as well as new business and policy models that will help speed adoption both here in our state and the nation and the world. And we see the strategic opportunity here is for businesses, investors, and entrepreneurs from around the world to come here and help build world-class companies related to electric, shared, and autonomous mobility. So it's not a small vision. This is really complicated. I don't know. I don't want to get into too much detail, but essentially, there will be a for-profit entity that will be a California Mobility Center Investment Corporation. There will be a nonprofit entity, which will be the California Mobility Center itself. That will be managed by a governing board of founding members. Founding members are people, companies, that step up early and step up, in a pretty material financial way, and are therefore installed as governing board. There will be a layer of consortium management, people whose job it is to make the whole thing work. And then these are some of the functions that the California Mobility Center will make available to companies and startups and investors who come and do work with it and want to test various aspects of the future of mobility. And out here, we will continue to have some advisory teams, which is frankly probably where Valley Vision is going to end up continuing to play. Some of the then you ask, okay, so why you guys? Why here? And that gets sort of to the value proposition. These are some of the cases, some of the arguments that we make for why here, why now, why with this focus. You often hear in future transportation circles, and frankly in the climate change circles that I work in, that Sacramento is the place to be because this is where all of the leading edge policy is conceived and made and implemented, and that is absolutely the case. So in order to, and that's an enormous value. So in order to realize that value, in order for the center to realize that value associated with being in Sacramento, it really needs to be able to work and speak persuasively at the public policy level with the state across multiple agencies. And that's a value that those participating in the consortium would be able to take advantage of. We've obviously got an enormous amount of electric transportation expertise in the region, whether it's UC Davis ITS or frankly, a lot of the work that SMUD is doing in incentives and adoption and facilitating that. And there's a ton of research, obviously, again, that goes on at the universities. PEM, I haven't spoken a lot about PEM, but what PEM is going to do is to build a development, prototyping, testing, and commercialization center, a physical thing, that will be in Sacramento, that will be the sort of the principal immediate asset that's available to those who come to work with the consortium. And then lastly, we'll be able to help support the companies that are working with the center in, if they're exploring new or novel business models for how they would roll out whatever the business is that they're thinking of, the center would be able to assist with that as well. I think I sort of talked about this, why Sacramento? So we make the case really bluntly, why Sacramento, talk through it. So there's an initial 5-year period of startup where there will be more money going out than there will be coming in, as is typical with a startup endeavor. Eventually, the consortium model is designed to become financially self-sustaining once it reaches scale, and it will cover its operating costs through annual memberships and of companies and project revenues. But the 5-year budget estimate for ramp up for startup is $70 to $80 million, largely due to the necessity of building this prototyping facility that PEM Aachen is going to. Actually, they're now called PEM Motion. That PEM Motion is now going to come and partner with and do here, as well as what they already do in Germany. And so the founders of the California Mobility Center will be providing that one-time startup funding to make sure that it can get through that startup phase to scale, take the risk out of the center, and as I said, cover the startup costs. So the first step in that, once the feasibility study was kind of done and approved and everybody agreed it was a feasible thing to do, was to get some initial seed capital. And that came, I think it was early May. Yes. In fact, it was my birthday. And I went to the SMUD board meeting to say my little piece. It was supposed to be 2 days before my birthday, and then they moved it. Anyway, so SMUD's board, Arlen Orchard and staff put forth a proposal, and which SMUD's board approved, which authorized Arlen Orchard, Chief Executive Officer and General Manager, to commit SMUD as the first formal commitment to participate in the Mobility Center as a founding member. And the board authorized a commitment on behalf of SMUD of up to $15 million in 3 tranches. So so with milestones. So you get the first swag, and then and if you can get to that the related milestone, then you get the second tranche, and So it's not here's a blank check for $15 million, but But if you can meet these milestones, then that's the breadth of the organization's willingness to commit to it. And I will say that Arlen Orchard I have heard, is himself incredibly committed to this. And he has said in multiple meetings that he is expecting over the next year to devote a fairly decent chunk of his time as CEO to making sure that they hit those milestones and secure additional founding members so that it can really get up and running. So I think that's the last slide. And I'd be happy to take any questions, assuming I can answer them. Yes?
Well, this actually isn't a question, it's more of a thought. And that is not only for transportation, but for stationary emissions reduction. You have to keep in mind that the things you're going to be replacing have up to a 20-year life. So if you want to get something done by 90% reduction by 2050, you're going to have to make a huge jump between 2020 and 2030
Yes.
in order to get that done. So so you can't be snoozing for the first 10 years. You got to really get moving.
Yes.
Can you repeat
Agree.
that with your mic?
Oh, you can't be snoozing for the first 10 years. But with all seriousness, yes. The point was that a lot of these assets that are going to be invested in have extended lifespans, and and so if we want to make material change out to the 2040, 2050 time horizon, we need to start making that change now.
Well, the point is that if you don't start making it now,
Right.
you'll buy the old crap, and that'll have a 20-year life, and so you won't
Right.
get to replace it for
Yes.
another 20 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't let people buy the old crap.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That sounds really interesting. I was curious why it's not called the Sacramento Mobility Center, because it really seems to be, supporting businesses here, policies here that could, have implications for the rest of the state, but it doesn't seem to be
I think the goal was in the naming to not give the impression that it was just going to be oriented to Sacramento, but that it had much more significant ambitions.
So, I had the opposite question. Why is it limited to California? Worldwide vision.
Because one needs to begin somewhere. Yes.
And is the prototype idea for what's called an e-mobility hub? Is it for kind of a hub for electrified mobility? Is the idea that it would be in the city of Sacramento? I'm just trying to understand
So
what the prototype
the
is.
prototyping facility will have, and I'm not an engineer, I was an English major, but it will have all sorts of rapid prototyping and small scale prototype manufacturing capacity, so that if I am a company and I've got a component part or a new steering wheel that I think is, or a thing that won't be a steering wheel because it'll go in an autonomous vehicle, that I think has merit, and I need to get that out into the world a little bit, I can come and work at the center and physically produce the thing. And then I give it to you guys, and you can test it in your vehicle, and you can tell me what you think about that. And so it's sort of a rapid iteration opportunity at the earlier side of a manufacturing process.
Yeah, one of the prototyping media would be industrial scale 3D printing.
Absolutely.
That should
Yes.
be able to actually build a component of it.
Build the whole thing.
Full-size car.
Yes. Yes. Thomas?
I just want to kind of piggyback on what you said there. Kim, who she mentioned, their specialty is scaling up hardware at the automotive scale, taking something from that concept stage to be able to be mass produced.
Right.
So that's the really specialty that they're bringing to this center that you don't really find a whole lot in California, is that ability to take something and do massive scale with it. Happy with that they can do small things, but this is to take it from doing a couple hundreds or a couple thousand units to potentially millions.
Right.
That's what their specialty is.
Yep.
It's big.
And that's the vision for.
Has Tesla talked to them?
Does Tesla talk to them?
So well, I know in Germany, PEM has a slew of auto manufacturer relationships. The status here is that we're sort of in this sort of behind the scenes working period where the legal structure, the legal entities that will comprise the California Mobility Center, and into which additional founding members would be able to put their investment dollars, all of that's being created right now. So while there have been initial conversations with a number of auto manufacturers, there's not really a thing for them to say yes and write a check to yet. So, but that's absolutely the intention.
Everybody?
So in terms of, technical factory development, think about this one. Because I was reflecting on this, and some of you probably hit it today too, or have recently. Tesla in the next 2 months is supposed to show their pickup. They have absolutely no production capacity anywhere for that, building that pickup. So where are they going to build it? And, the answer is, why not Sacramento? But, again, there's a lot of new production coming and new vehicle options. There was a skateboard platform for four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, that was just shown. It's come on the internet in the last 3 days. that is being farmed out to OEMs. And again, just as Meg was saying, this is a period of incredible change, probably the greatest in terms of mobility in the last 100 years.
Hi, I'm Tommy Choonhaurai. I'm an Audi brand specialist at Nilo Audi. I'm here with the e-tron. The e-tron has been a pretty extensive experience for me. I've gotten to drive it around for the last 2 days. And there's a lot. Yep, and I've only worked for Audi for about a week. So they just threw me in here. And all I can really say is Audi has puts a really big emphasis on its cross between performance and luxury. And then in our crossover line, we actually gets the additional amenity of being more practical than our other cars. And it's really crazy to me to see how the e-tron actually does not sacrifice performance, luxury, or practicality in comparison to the other Audis that are in our lineup. So what I mean by that is, when you drive a Q5 versus an e-tron, or a Q7 versus an e-tron, or a Q8 versus an e-tron, you're going to actually be surprised that the dynamic functions of the e-tron might actually feel a little bit more sporty than the other crossovers in the segment, just because EVs do have a higher torque ratio and you do get access to that power a lot faster. That being said, in the more comfortable drivetrains that are available in the vehicle, you'll get to choose between the 5 driving modes. The comfort driving is a lot. It's not as torquey, and so you're going to get that same experience that you're going to get from driving a regular car without the whiplash that you're going to get from from an electric vehicle. It's a lot. You get to choose. In addition, I think it's actually a little bit more practical than a lot of cars you're going to see in Audi's lineup. So the brakes, there's huge brake calipers on the e-tron. The braking, there's a function in it where when you take your foot, it's not one pedal driving, but when you do take your foot off, you can adjust how much electrical current is restored from doing that. In dynamic mode, it's the least amount. In comfort or in economic mode, it's the most. And then performance-wise, I already touched on that, and luxury-wise, the most I can talk about in that is, does it feel like an Audi when you're inside of it? And yeah, it does. It's really insane that you don't have to sacrifice anything. In fact, I would argue that it's even a little bit more loaded than a regular Audi, because all the Audis, all the 2019 lineup has Apple CarPlay, but the e-tron is the only one with wireless Apple CarPlay. So you're not going to have your USB plugged into the car to have full access to your phone. In addition to that, it's also the only one with a clip on the charging pad. So you can clip your phone into the charging pad, and you do not have to touch your phone if you connect it to Bluetooth. You can use all of your app functions through the center display, and it's extremely convenient. I think their approach to haptic, optic, and acoustic feedback in their car is extremely pronounced, and you can see it even in the e-tron.
What's the starting MSRP for it?
I do believe it's around $73,000.
And the one you have out here?
I think that one's fully loaded. It might be 82. I know it has the 86. Yeah, I was gonna say I know it has the Prestige package, which is $7,000, and then the added the wheel package. It has the 21-inch rims on it. Yeah.
How many do you have in your inventory of the e-trons?
Right now, there's 3 on the lot. None of them are posted for sale. We're waiting for all the pre-orders to get in, so that way we can properly advertise it.
So one of the things that we were spoiled about for the last 7 or 8 years in adopting Chevrolet Volts as a cutting-edge choice from 2011 onward was that Sullivan Chevrolet out in Roseville had a dedicated EV person who was really knowledgeable and dedicated. What I'd like to add is, so now does Nilo Audi. Their boss, this man's boss, is a truly dedicated EV person. He could not be here tonight with conflicting commitments, but David Morgan there has come on board. He was the EV specialist at CUNY. And with the various head chopping that happened there, he's now landed as the electric vehicle specialist at Nilo. So that is a huge plus. As many of you know that go through a conventional dealer, it is amazingly difficult to find someone who really understands the vehicles. And David is doing a great job of tutoring this young man.
I brought his information.
Yeah, he called me, David called me this afternoon and said, be gentle. He's still in training.
Yes.
Yeah. Good job.
Good job.
Thank you guys so much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Rios. Some of you have heard my spiel before. I have just a couple of stories. I know we're short on time, so I'll speed along here. I had a Model 3 on order. I canceled it. Why? Because I sat in an iPace and drove it. A friend of mine also had a Model 3 on order. He canceled it as well. His issue was that he didn't want to look to the right every time he needed information. So what? And he said, think about it. And I said, oh, the screen's over here, and you're always. So I said, okay, I don't want to look to the right. So I went out shopping. The iPace is, I never thought of myself as a cat person, but here I am. And it's a new beast for Jaguar. I bought the HSE, which is the highest model. It's got every bell and whistle on it. It's fully loaded. The only thing it doesn't have is that cool mood lighting that you can adjust. Kind of like the 737 MAX, you know, where they have that mood lighting inside. So, yes. Yeah. So the other thing is I'm also on the Jaguar Advisory Board. So I'm also part of the team that's going to decide what the next iteration of the iPace is going to be. And I've been spending a lot of time trying to convince Jaguar. Oh, by the way, I did opt for the class on how to pronounce the name Jaguar that was thrown in for free. I choose to make it a 2-syllable word as opposed to a 3-syllable word. So with that said, the British have a very different way of communicating what a navigation system should be all about. The Germans are very straightforward. Where do you want to go? I'll get you there. The British want to stop for tea. They want to do all these weird things. Their navigation system is crazy. You'll be driving along on the freeway. It'll have you get off the freeway. It'll take you around a little neighborhood and it'll put you right back on the freeway and continue. I don't understand what's going on, but it also has Apple CarPlay. So if you just get tired of that. So my biggest complaint about it is the new infotainment system. It's totally redesigned from the ground up. Those of you who are familiar with Land Rover, you see that the new 2020s are all coming with new electronics. It's the biggest problem, biggest headache, biggest challenge that Jaguar is going to have is trying to get this infotainment system right because it's so complicated. It's crazy. So one of the things, and I've mentioned, is they want the car to be able to pay toll on its own. So you fill it up with money, and the infotainment system, as you drive over bridges, will automatically pay bridges, and including paying for a latte at Starbucks. As you drive through Starbucks, the car will pay for your latte. And I am screaming at these people saying, you gotta get me from point A to point B first before you can talk about getting me to Starbucks, because it can't get me to Starbucks. To pay for the latte is my issue. But anyway. So the car's really comfortable. It has air suspension. You can raise the car up to be a 4-wheel drive to go through rocks and such, but I don't use it that often. It's very comfortable. The range starts at about 287 miles with on a good day. And I was telling somebody, if you don't eat for a week, you might get somewhere close to that. Real world is about 210. I did make it all the way back from Monterey on one charge, I was happy about that. Electrify America is the savior for Jaguar because it's a 100 kilowatt charging system, and it takes, they always brag about 40 minutes to 80%, but a 50 watt EVgo charger is at 50 kilowatts, and so it's an hour and a half to 80%. So I'm glad Electrify America is around, and now I see EVgo has a 150 kilowatt machine down at S and wherever it is at, the little park. What am I missing? Yeah, the e-tron is cheaper by a little bit. Mine was 92, way too much. I went from a Model 3 to a $92,000 car, but they knocked off the 7,500 thing. Yeah, from the price, which I said, okay. And that's all I got. So enjoy it. I can answer questions over there.
What's your number one favorite thing about the car?
I like the glass ceiling. I like the power. It's a double engine, double motor. And the comfort is probably, I've driven S's, I've driven 3s, and you get this little thing going. But this is, if those of you have ever drove that Lincoln Continental in the 70s where it was, where it would just float along, that's what this does. And I'm really surprised. And that's probably the most impressive. Plus, I love all the touch screens and everything, and it's like driving a spaceship.
Does Jag have any free charging deals with anybody?
Interesting question you ask. BMW does. It came with a 2-year charging. Jaguar doesn't have anything. And nor did they really know anything much about it. I had some, what I thought was a battery issue. And the service manual for Jaguar is basically blank on batteries. The Jaguar sends out corporate engineers for any issue that has anything to do with the batteries. They don't want the dealerships to try to repair or troubleshoot batteries. They want to be right on top of it.
How long does that take? We had Toyota RAV4 EVs. It was almost the exact same thing. Tesla had to come over,
Right.
engineers, and do it, and it would take forever.
Well, luckily they were able to. They just reset all the electronics, and so what the Jaguar does is it analyzes your driving habits, and then it adjusts the range based on your driving habits. So if you charge it and you get 280 mile a charge, and you drive like a bat out of hell like I do, the next time you get in the car, it'll say 140 miles, and it looks like it's almost full. Well, the reason is because it knows you drive like a jerk, and will adjust accordingly. And they don't explain that, that you're looking for that 280 again when you fill. Yeah. So, but I love the car.
So one thing that I'm sure was something you were interested in when you were reserving the Model 3 was the autonomous driving and autopilot potentially. Are there any, what kind of level of assisted driving does the vehicle have?
Well, it has the auto adaptive cruise, and it also has auto steer lane. It stays in the lane, but it doesn't have any self-driving capability. I'm still not comfortable with self-driving capability, and my family's from Mountain View, and that's all they have really. It was just all the little things mapping out the streets, but yeah, it doesn't have that.
One more question.
Neither of you talked about the really important issue of cup holders.
Yeah. Probably more than a Model S.
Oh, you don't know how funny that question is. If you go out and look, the cup holder is covered up.
Kind of hidden.
It's hidden, and you have to take off the little cover and put it away, and there are your cup holders. In the advisory group, they asked us all the question, do you want to see the cup holders or not see the cup holders? And everybody's commenting on the little cover. And I'm going, oh my God. just get this infotainment system right. Stop sending me off to, stop. Just get me where I need to go without sending me on a wild goose chase in the navigation system. But yeah, it's got 2 cup holders in the front and two in the back.
So this is, I think, incredibly clear confirmation that love is a personal thing.
Yeah.
George, one more thing. You have 22-inch tires on that car?
I opted for the 22. It starts at 19, and the largest is 22-inch. It does suck up. Oh yeah, it does, but it looks a lot better. In fact, 19-inch wheels on that thing just. No, it doesn't look right.
Well, they're probably cheaper than 21-inch tires.
And the e-tron has the 21.
Yes.
I also had the whole car ceramic, so to reduce any heat inside the car. So it came tinted, but then I had ceramic coating put on all the windows. So even the ceiling, so you don't.
So you're saving that.
I'm saving, so I don't have to run the air conditioning as much.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Can I just say one real quick thing, just real quick, which is off the subject but on the subject because we're kind of going on this other tangent. So I'm on the board of directors of Woodside in Sacramento. Some of you may be familiar with that housing community. It's 725 homes. It's been there for 50 years. We are, as a community, trying to work with Davis. We're trying to work with SMUD. We're trying to get into electrification. We have giant gas boilers that are heating our water. We have a ton of trees, so we're not a good solar candidate. We are trying to figure out a way to get EV chargers into our community, but as you can imagine, an HOA only has so much money, and really we're getting like $100,000 bids for just a couple of stations, and the roots from the trees make it almost impossible to get trenching in to get everything that we need. So we're hoping to be a model community for everybody to say, well, if it can be done here in this multifamily community, then it can be done anywhere, because we have every challenge that can be thrown at a project like that. So I'm hoping that SMUD can really come through for us for both hot water and for EV charging.
The new Nissan Leaf, the iPace, Audi, a Chevy Bolt, Nissan Leaf,
so you can sense that someone is driving the car. Right.
Does it have a charge port on this side too? Oh, it does not. Optic.
I have 2 electric vehicles. If you buy it, maybe they will come. I don't know.
But do you have a garage? I mean, do you have it? So how are you keeping this thing charged?
I go to Rayleigh's.
software.